Today we're speaking with Naill, an Irish banker turned screenwriter who's worked with big names such as Ridley Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer. If this video brought you value, please like the video and subscribe for more content. So, why don't you give me like a brief understanding of how you got into filmmaking in the first place? I understand you were from Ireland, you used to be a banker, so how did that all go?
Yeah, I worked in finance for say about 10 years. Pretty unhappy with how things were going. Always loved film. It was my I tell you what I think it was my father like ran a business like a car repair shop, and my brother worked there, so I was always jealous of their relationship. So my relationship with my father was like watching movies, so I fell in love with the whole like the movie aspect. But again, no one gets to be what they want to be as the kids, like. So I ended up in banking, and then one day as I looked around, I was like 31, 32, and I was just like extremely unhappy with my life. And I was just like, I was always so quick to blame other people. It's his fault, it's their fault. It was actually my fault because I was lazy. So I started writing, and then I fell in love with the craft of writing, and it became like it wasn't like a job. It became like a passion. It gave me an identity. And then I always like it was I went in this rabbit hole of trying to improve myself, improving my writing, and eventually I quit my job, ended up in Canada, worked on film sets in Canada. And again, like I don't come from a family background of like industry people, or like I have no connections or anything like that. So I'd never set foot in a set until I was like 31, 32. So I was on set in Vancouver, reading the sides, watching it being filmed. So that informed my writing, and I go down to LA, try to pitch stuff. And this happened over like, this was like 5 or 6 years of this like constantly grinding. And then I ended up back in Ireland, and then I got a phone call because I'd be like writing scripts, sending emails, and then I got a phone call from a producer, and he's just like, come to Italy and let's write some movies together. And then that's how it then I kind of like snowballed, and have 4 movies made now, of a TV show, produced a podcast. Of Yeah, man, it's been a I live in America now. I sponsored to live here, so yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, no, quite the adventure you have right there. The part that stands out to me the most is obviously born and raised in Ireland. You went to LA, then you went to Vancouver, then you went to LA again, and then you went to Italy to make some stuff, and you went back to Ireland. So I'm just curious that um, I'm not too familiar with the Ireland film industry, but I know that there is an industry there, and of course, next to it, the UK, they have a big expanding thing there. You could have taken on like a PA on, say, Sherlock Holmes, for instance, a really really big English show. So, and I know that Hollywood tends to be like like the filmmaking dream and stuff. But I'm just curious, why did you specifically want to go to Hollywood, and what also made you want to stay in Vancouver?
Um, for me, film is escape. Like for me, everyone wants to be Indiana Jones for 90 minutes. Everyone wants to be James Bond. For me, the whole thing is like you can leave your problems at the door. I'm gonna take you on a journey. You're gonna have like you had a bad day at work, cool. Not in here. You and your girlfriend are fighting, cool. This is a rom-com. You're both gonna enjoy it. For me, movies were an escape. And the thing, like I'm a genre guy, so it's horror, it's action, it's sci-fi, it's thriller, and those two type of things combined. So say that type of genre and that type of reasoning escape maybe isn't big in Ireland. Ireland very their output is very like social issues and promoting like Ireland as a brand. Like how many Irish action movies have you seen?
None.
Like yeah, exactly. And that listen, that's fine, man. That's if you want to do that. Like I'm not trying to throw any shade, but I don't want to. I want to let people escape their problems when they come to the cinema. I don't want to do a social issue about homelessness or addiction. That's not why and that's fine if you do want to do that. But for me, it's just like, oh, there's a guy in a room, and he's chained to the wall and he has a gun and he has to kill these crime lords. Like high concept. There's an archaeologist who's fighting Nazis. Sign me up. Like, I'm in because it's so fantastical. I don't, for me, if you wanna like, if your creative output is social issues, sure, you can just read the newspaper. Like, you can just go outside and walk down the street, you know. So, and also a big factor in that is like I've worked in Ireland before. And I was personal assistant on The Last Duel with Ridley Scott, and I was on another movie. But lots of the Ireland is the creative aspects, and the same in Vancouver is they're not written in Vancouver. Like the shows that are made in Vancouver, the creative aspects aren't there. Now, don't get me wrong, some of them are, but all the creative aspects are done in Los Angeles, you
Hmm.
know? So yeah, of course, could I get a job in Ireland? 110%. But I want to be involved in the creative aspect to it. And to would either involve me probably dealing with subject matter that I'm not really passionate about. Because passion will get you across the line faster than like someone telling you what's what's on topic or what's cool to make. I don't want
Hmm.
if I wanted to do something I didn't want to do, I just would have stayed in banking and made lots of money, than doing something I don't want to do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So, what's your process of writing? What script software do you use? When do you usually write? How do you outline your script? How do you start that? What's that all about?
So first of all, it starts with like an idea. And for me, I got at the idea like gestate for like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. And if the idea won't go away, like if it keep on coming back to her thinking about her lying in bed, then that means I have to write it. It's like that itch you gotta scratch. I can't
Hmm.
leave it. So usually I try work out, which to my detriment, like outlines for me, like again, like I'm not writing any like heavy topics. I'm not writing like like stuff that's going to change the world. Or there's no like message behind it. So I try not to outline. I try to make it as because it's organic. It's like anything else. Like if you outline too much, you can put yourself in a box. Oh well, I have to get to this incident here by this page. I have to be here by this page. But when you're writing, you might be like, well, actually, the character wouldn't do that now. I understand the character now. I can picture him in my head. He wouldn't go to the warehouse. He'd go to the beach. He wouldn't do this. He'd do that. So sometimes outlines can can corral you into like painting by numbers. Yeah, it's a painting, but like you didn't. There's no like creativity involved there. But in saying that, lots of the times I've not outlined and I've been like, I don't know what's happening. It's page 40 and everyone's dead and I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I've lots of scripts that are just like, with lots of cobwebs, just looking to be looked at again, and it's gonna shove them in the corner that I won't. So and what I try to do is I try to you can only get so much juice from the squeeze. So like there's no I listen to people and it's like I wrote for 12 hours today and I'm just like that sounds horrible and it sounds very unproductive. You're better off giving yourself 5 good hours. And by I mean 5 good hours, that's 3 good hours. So your first hour is always like it's always just like you know, getting the motion going. Then the 3 hours in between, that's when all the gold happens. And then the last hour, you're exhausted. Your brain can only like creativity can only have so much. So the last hour I usually do like spell check, grammar check. I reread it. I kind of like wind down, if that makes sense. So for me, writing is always in the morning because I'll talk myself out of it. If I say I'm going to start writing at 8 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, I'm too tired. I'm hungry. I want to go for a beer. I've done this. But if I get up at like sometimes I get up at 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm done by like 12 o'clock and have the rest of the day to myself. I'm like, and also it's just like in the morning, I just get out of bed. I don't even think about it. I don't do it. I just get out of bed, turn on my laptop, go to my desk. Okay, I'm writing now. And like, that's the trick. You'll talk yourself out of doing it if you leave it later. Just get up, get it out of the way, boom. And then I use Final Draft, which is the industry standard. So yeah, that's what
Got
that's
it.
it.
And I mean, I understand about like I find that doing some of your harder tasks in the morning is usually the best time slot. That's just what I've noticed in general because yeah, as you said, that's when you're wide awake, the battery is full, and you're more motivated to get a hard job done. And
Yeah,
I do
done.
find,
Yeah.
even like I like to write too, I find writing a very difficult job. It's just the motivation to look at a blank
Oh,
page and write.
I dude, man. So like I sit sometimes I sit there and just like I really don't want to write today. I really don't want to do this. But in saying that, the 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 most important days to write are the days you don't want to write. That's when you make the most gains. It's listen, if everyone had all the motivation in the world, it was just like easy to write. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like.
Hmm. Now, going back, so as you said, you don't like to use outlines. You like to kind of figure things out as you go. Would you consider yourself like a discovery writer where you start on page one and you just kind of see where everything goes? Or do you go with some sort of strategy or some sort of overall plan in mind, like you a general direction you know the story's going?
Oh yeah, no, no, I know. Like, I think I've come to the stage now that I can like I understand story. I understand like I understand the like learning to screenwrite. It's like learning a different language. It's like and like for me, the hero's always got to win in the end. He's always got to get the girl, and that's like 99% of the audience want to see the good guy win, the bad guy die. You know, there's all those intricacies, and like picture like screenwriting is this like it's just like a skeleton. The story's the skeleton, and it's how the person acts. That's the connective tissue to connect it all. I know what I want. So this is how I usually work it. And so a screenplay is 90 pages. Okay. And again, like people have like the 7 act structure, the fucking 14 act structure, the 1 act structure. I just work off a 3 act structure, 15 pages. Die Hard, 15 pages. Hans Gruber gets out of the elevator. John McClane's life is going one way. Something outside of control goes another way. So if you look at like Titanic, Rose is about to jump off the ship. We introduce Jack. Her life's going one way. Jack turns it the other way. So around page 15, something happens to our hero where he has to change direction in his life. Okay. Page 45, there's some sort of revelation, some sort of something happens, right? And then page 75 is all hope is lost. Like, there's only enough room on the door for one person. The John McClane's out of bullets. If you can kind of stick to those kind of parameters, and then there's other stuff like you want the guy to be bad at something at the start and good at something at the end. How many times have we seen like, they're a team of like, kids on the wrong side of the tracks who can't work together. They meet an inspirational coach, and then at the end of the movie, they win the state championship, blah, 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 blah. Like these are timeless stories. But I think there's something that's really important that I think people miss when they're telling stories or when they're writing. And you can see it in Die Hard, you see it in Titanic. There's a movie. Do you ever see a movie called October Sky with Jake
No.
Gyllenhaal? Okay. If anyone's listening to this out here, just watch this movie. So it's about Jake Gyllenhaal and his dad's Chris Cooper, and they're growing up in like, I don't know, Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. It's like a mining town in the 50s. And it's all about the space race. And Jake Gyllenhaal wants to build rockets and wants to work for NASA. And he's talking about Werner von Braun, who did the space program, blah, 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 blah. And Chris Cooper says, no nonsense father who works in the mines. He's stern, but he's fair. He's an antagonist, but he's not like beating his son. He's just like, yo, you can't live like you have to live a real life. Like no one gets to be an astronaut. Yeah, you're gonna work. Your grandfather worked in the mine, like I work in the mine, your brother works in the mine, blah, 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 blah. But Jake Gyllenhaal wants to build rockets. And you think the story is about Jake Gyllenhaal like achieving his goal of building a rocket. But that's not what the movie's about. So towards the end, Jake Gyllenhaal goes to NASA. He meets Werner von Braun and comes back to a small town. And he's like celebrated as being like, oh, the kid who done well. And Chris Cooper says to him, "Are you happy now you met your hero?" And Jake Gyllenhaal turns back and says, "Werner von Braun was never my hero," implying his father was his hero. The movie isn't about building rocket ships. The movie's about a father and a son trying to find a middle ground, trying to relate to that. And who doesn't have that with a father figure? Who doesn't like Who understands their father growing up? Like we're all looking for that middle ground. Like so it's a universal story. Although I never worked in a coal mine or went to NASA, I was just like, I can relate to that. I get that. And it's the same way you look at Rose. The story of Titanic, it isn't about the ship sinking. It's about Rose finding her independence. When we meet her, she's all like being pampered by Billy Zane and like living this arty farty lifestyle. And at the end, she's just like she gives a wrong name, Rose Dawson, and she shuns all the wealth and the life she had before. Like Titanic's about Rose independent. Die Hard is about what a man would do for his wife. You know, if you took Holly Gennaro, John McClane's wife, out of that movie, and John McClane is like an ex-cop security guard going around killing thing, the movie's not as good. It's not, like, that's the heart. But the thing is, like, you have to find that. If someone said, like, what's Titanic about? It's about the ship sinking. What's Die Hard about? Oh, it's about this guy killing terrorists in this building. Well, it's not really. So, but once you can find those stories, once you can understand that, like you elevate your work exponentially, potentially.
For sure, for sure. Um, so how are you able to sort of get your scripts seen by other producers and agents and stuff and get those movies made?
So, like, again, I was doing lots of this from like Vancouver and Dublin, and okay, like, again, like I said, I don't have any family connections or background. Like, I don't, when I came to LA, I have no family here. I had no friends. Like, I literally just came with like a bag and a stick. Um, like what I used to do is and again, this is true trial and error. So I wrote my script, and again, like I'd write something that was just like, oh, this is. People say your first script is either like something so personal that no one can relate to, or it's Jupiter Ascending, which is this. It's going to cost $200 million. If you can write like Saw, your second script should be Saw. Write like a small contained thriller someone can do for $1 million, one location, one day, and it's got a cool hook. It's got a cool twist, right? So I wrote something like that. And okay, I'm in Ireland, I'm in Canada. What can I do? So I start like sending out cold emails, and again, I'd send out this big long email about all the stuff I've done, what my experience. At the end of the day, no one cares if you went to Cambridge Film School, if you're uh, drive a lorry, if you work in a gas station. The producers don't care. They just care, is this a cool idea? Is this well written? Okay. So I kind of like honed this, like, so a query letter, like, so I'd send out these emails, and I made this query letter that you could read in like 15 seconds. Hey, my name's Naill. I'm a screenwriter. I have a script I think you'll be interested in. I give them the log line. If this has piqued your interest, let me know and I'll send you on the script. 15 seconds, send it out. But the trick is that there's no point in sending this out on Monday and Friday. Monday, people are catching up from the weekend. Friday, people are leaving the office early. So I did, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, what time do people get up at? Say about 7:30 most of the time. Okay, so I'll send that at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. So the first thing you do when you get up out of bed is you check your phone instinctively. There's absolutely nothing that like, everyone checks their phone when they wake up. So I think of some like catchy kind of like subject line. So say, for example, Alien Romulus came out, and I wanted to contact the producer of Alien Romulus. I put Alien Romulus in the scene header, or not the scene header, the subject line. So they'd instinctively go in and open it. And they would read it. And the thing about it is, if someone's interested in the log line, they'll ask to read the script. And if they're not interested, don't ever take like a non-response as like, this person doesn't like me, or they're not happy, or they're angry. They just weren't interested. And then they read the script, and then they like, people are just like, oh, well, it's lucky that they sold your script, or they bought your script. And it's like, there's no luck involved. It's where opportunity meets preparation. If a person wants to read your script, they have an opportunity that they want filled. But if your script is like bad spelling, or the grammar is bad or it doesn't make sense or there's no structure, then that it's not, then they're not gonna want to buy that off you. So once you've all your ducks in a row, so I'd send these emails and I'd send 20 a day every day, well, 3 days a week over the course of months. So 20 a day over a month, that's about 240. So I'd literally go to 240 producers. And again, I pick these guys. I'm not like carpet bombing. A producer who does Christmas movies isn't going to do a horror movie 9 times out of 10. There's no point in this like emailing everybody. You have to like do some research, make it personal, add this person on LinkedIn, try to have a conversation over Twitter with them, you know? And yeah, so eventually I did that, and that's actually how I got my visa. I emailed a producer. He optioned my screenplay. We built up a relationship, and he ended up sponsoring me to be here in Los Angeles.
Fantastic. That's really fascinating.
Mm.
So, you also said that you've been on obviously a ton of big movies. You've worked with lots of big name directors and filmmakers and actors. And what I'm curious about is there a particular movie or a particular filmmaker that has given the most influence to your writing style?
Um, I worked on well, two instances. I worked on a movie called Pulley with Charlize Theron and Mackenzie Davis, and it's Jason Reitman. And again, like when I say I worked in these, I was like a production assistant. Like I was literally like picking up garbage. But the thing about good thing about production assistant is you have no job. So you can kind of like float around. I was just like, yeah, I'll be back in a minute. I just like float around asking people what their job was, what they do. Like I was just like a sponge absorbing so much information. Because I knew like I was like 32 and I was like, I got a lot of catching up to do. I remember there's one scene in Tully where I understood like the depth of field that like so Jason wanted like the way he set up the shot and the way it was written on the page. I understood the translation of this line of description equals this in a shot, and I thought that was like super interesting. And then so when I was in LA and then COVID happened, so I had blah 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 blah. I had to go home to Ireland. So my buddy reached out and says, I'm working on a movie. Do you want to, like, I know you're a screenwriter, but do you want to come? I've done like personal assistant stuff before. Do you want to be a personal assistant? And I was like, well, who is it? And this is like, well, it's Ridley Scott's new movie, like with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Adam Driver. They're filming in Ireland. So I ended up being Jodie Comer's assistant. So this was like during COVID. So Ridley Scott wouldn't be on set because of COVID. So when he came on set, everyone had to clear out except the actors and their assistants. Ridley Scott. So I was literally like standing beside Ridley Scott, and I swear to God, man, like I was like shaking, nervous. I was like, "Don't say anything." And just like hearing him talk to actors and hearing him talk about the script and what it meant, and he wouldn't ever talk about how to deliver it, but he talked about the essence of it. Like I seen like understanding like the words on a different level from like a master. And I was just stand there and just like watch him speak. And that was like super influential on my writing. Like, yeah, like, and again, like, I'm not saying he didn't write it, he just directed it. But like seeing him, how he interpreted the words and how he wanted the actors to interpret those words.
Yeah, so in what way was he interpreting those words? What was he doing so different that stood out to you?
No, it was just like how he'd act the scene and be like, the camera's going to be here, you're going to come in here, we're going to do this, you say your line, this, because this is where you're standing is going to reflect how the line's delivered, how we're going to cut it together. Just like I was made more cognizant of, okay, we have to we're writing the words, but like, should I give space for the editor to cut there? Should I give like those? So it was just like beforehand, I just seen it as like a linear field. But like watching him work, I realized there's like different levels that, of course, like I didn't like, of course, a screenwriter should just tell the story, but like I seen it like a devil, like a different, like there's all these different levels of complexity to when they film and how we, and again, like, of course, he's editing it, he sees it all in his head. So, and again, like, would I like to direct? Sure, but I'm happy screenwriting. But like, be appreciative that other people will have to uh, work on this after you're done writing. So keep them in mind, because of course, like if and that's the whole thing. If you write a script that's based over one day, that's easier for costume, easier for locations, easier, that's easier for the producer to make because it's one we don't have to go anywhere. So keep all that stuff in mind when to an extent when writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's basically like you put on your writer's cap and you're writing your script, but then in a way, even if you're not producing the movie, you kind of need to take the creativity hat off, put the logistics hat on, and really think
Yeah.
about it like, okay, someone's going to have to get money for this and find the locations and the actors and blah, blah, blah. So this becomes a real thing. How is that
Yeah.
going to affect everyone? It's kind of thinking long term.
Yeah. No, definitely, definitely. So this is like watching him, and it's like when was Aliens 79? And I'm just like, this guy's been around like wow, 70, 40 years, just like making like, yeah, whatever, man. Some of his movies are like not great, but like you're just like making think about like about Ridley Scott is they're all big swings. They're all like, like it's so funny. I watched GI Jane the other day, and I'm just like, man, this is like way ahead of its time, like way ahead of its time. But of
Hmm.
course it bombed. And that's such a weird movie to make for him. But yeah.
So I want to go back to the writing process a little bit because I know that. So you said that you were using Final Draft, and I know that
Mhm.
Final Draft is sort of the industry standard. And I'm just curious about from your experience and probably what you've gathered from other people. Is Final Draft the one and only way? Have you tried other softwares as well? What's so special about Final Draft that other writers should keep in mind?
I think listen, I think it's just like that. Well, that's industry standard. Anyone that's going to ask you for like, oh, I like your, say you sell your script, it's on a PDF. That they'll ask for a final draft. They won't ask for like, fade in or like there's the other ones there. But final draft is like it's like the it's like WWE is like the wrestling federation, and there are other wrestling federations, but like you don't want to wrestle for like the number two. And listen, and I like Final Draft. People have issues with it, and sometimes there are issues, as in like the grammar checker isn't great, and there's sometimes it's kind of finicky, and sometimes it's kind of backwards. But it's like it's the you know it's you, it's the best. It's maybe this is the best, but like it's what everyone uses. Everyone's going to ask for it. Like there's going to be no. You don't want to be to a producer. Oh, I have it in Fade In or another program, and they're like, "What's that? Can you get it in Final Draft?" Like you don't want to give it any obstacles. Everyone's going to ask for Final Draft, whether it's the best or the worst. It's what everyone uses.
Right, right. And one of the sort of the deeper questions I was looking for as well, or one of the deeper information I was looking for is so on my YouTube channel, I do a lot of looking into various different script softwares. I've collaborated with a lot of upcoming script softwares. So, so number one, everyone understands that there's an industry standard. We all understand that. I went to a film school, and I understand why the industry standard is the industry standard. Um, and part of me is kind of wondering that. So for me, I don't really use Final Draft mainly because it's kind of expensive. There's other free versions, but I like experimenting with other things, and I know that for me, like, oh, this thing does this for me, and this thing does this for me, et cetera, et cetera. And there's part of me that's like, so if I wrote on these scripts, does that mean that they're not going to be seen by a producer? Does that mean I have to export and then maybe bring them into Final Draft and then export them? So, what would your advice be on something like that? Something that writers like that should keep an eye out for?
I would listen. I get a Final Draft's expensive, and I understand. I'd say I don't know. Is it $250, $300?
I don't remember. This is the last time I looked.
Yeah. It's around that, I think, and I get it, man. But listen, if you want to make if you're serious, if you want to make a career, like if you and again, everyone's in different situations, and I know like everyone like it's not like everyone has disposable income. But if you're starting out and you're going out spending $100 on beer or on thing, you can save $300. You know what I mean? Like, are you serious about this? Like, is this your future? Are you dedicated to it? That's what I'd say. A producer is not going to say, I don't want to buy your script because it isn't a final draft. listen, and this is my old boss was Scott Bernstein, and he used to be like an exec at Universal. He's just like the cream always rises to the top. If it's a good script and it's written on a napkin, the producer will take it. Like, doesn't make it. But for me, it's always like, why would I make it difficult? Why would I give him a reason to say no? Why am I creating this obstacle? This is like, it's not like it's a secret. This is the industry standard. Okay, it costs $300, but like, yeah, man, it's not like it's $20,000. And I know for some people it might be different. $300 might be a lot of money. I completely get that. But say if you're serious about this, if you really want to go down the route of being like a professional screenwriter, and you're not willing to put $300 into it, like like no one's going to hand you anything. Like, okay, you won't be able to go out the weekend, but and I think I've learned this over the time is that like success is in direct proportion to sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to become a screenwriter? Like, it's $300 your cutoff point, you know? So if I said to anyone, I get final draft. If you can, if you really want to commit to it, just do it. But like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like, a producer's not going to say no if it's not written in final draft. PDF, it doesn't take that long you can just copy and paste the PDF into final draft and just correct a few things and it's there. It's not a big issue, but like commit to it. If you're going to do it, like to become a screenwriter, it takes so much energy. It's a difficult task. And like, you can't be, oh, I'm 50% in or 75% in, or I'm kind of in, or like, I have a backup plan. It doesn't work like that. You have to sacrifice. You have to be willing. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to burn the boats. And this is it. Like, there's no going back, you know?
Absolutely. And I know that we're at 3:30. If I may just ask one final
Yeah, of course.
question. So you're writing 5 hours a day
Yeah.
as a
Sometimes
writer,
I try to. Sometimes.
right? But you do have that dedicated time for writing. What would your advice be of how to spend the rest of that time? Are you just relaxing? Are you coming with inspiration? Are you researching? What do you do with the rest of your day, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah. So for me, it's just like writing for me isn't like a job or a hobby. Writing is like my identity, if that makes sense. It's not like I turn off or just like laptop down, I'm done. It's like and a really cool aspect of that is that everything I do is informing my writing. So for me, it's just like I'll go pick a ball. I'll do anything. Interactions, because you always write better from realistic experiences. I'll go traveling, but like I always have a notepad or I always have like write stuff on my phone. It's not like if I if an idea hits me, I'm just like I'm not involved. And again, 5 hours writing, but a lot of the stuff after that is like admin. I gotta like emails, I got meetings, I have other stuff. Like, there's always something to do. There's an event to go to. There is to follow up on this like script query. There's blah 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 blah. Like, the writing aspect is 5 hours, but then the other aspects could be another 5 hours. Could be like, could be 1 hour, could be 20 minutes. Maybe I'll take a day off and go to the beach. But down the beach, I'll be like, I'll have a notepad or I'll write on my phone or I'll be reading a book because I think I want to write about this subject. So you're always turned on, but it's never. I'm never exhausted. I'm never like tired from this process or writing. Uh, like James, I find myself extremely grateful for the life I lead. I get to live in Los Angeles. I get to write for a living. Like, there's never any day I wake up and don't feel grateful. Like, because like I know what it's like to be in a job you don't like, in a situation you don't like. And I feel very indebted to writing. And I'm always trying to improve my craft. I'm always trying to get that bit better. So the rest of my day, although I might be going for pints with the lads or playing football, my brain is that writing switch is always on. It's always absorbing. If I'm out with the lads and someone says something funny, I'm like, that's a cool line. I'll jot that down. Like, the way like I'd see like a sunset and I'd be like, how would I describe this? Oh, that's a really cool way to describe this. I'll jot that down. Like, there's no and to succeed in this industry, you have to be turned on. You have to be always working. I got a phone call there um 2 weeks ago from this director, and he has like a star, and he's just like, "Do you have any scripts?" And I'm just like, "No," and he's just like, "Okay," and I was like, "Oh well, give me till the morning. Let me come up with something." So the next morning, I came up with a treatment. This is like 11 o'clock at night. The next morning, I stayed up, came up with a treatment. He's just like, "Excellent, write it." So he's giving me like 4 weeks to write it, and I'm just like, "Yeah, cool, man. Let's go." There's no like, "Oh, I'm kind of tired," and like, can you call me back in the morning? Because he'll just ring someone else. You know.
Hmm. No, great point. Great point. Well, I really appreciate all that advice, Naill. I really appreciate your time. Um, yeah, is there anything other advice that we haven't touched on that you want to drop?
Yeah. So if any, like for me, I'm not the best writer in the world. I'm not the best. I suffer with grammar. I suffer with spelling. Like I didn't do well in English in school. Like I know people who are way better writers than me. They're just not determined to become a successful screenwriter. It's called perseverance. Like skill, of course, but like the vast majority of people can in the Western world, in America, North America, whatever, can read and write. 110%. Like I just had to improve. And the thing about me is I'm willing to sacrifice a night's sleep, or I'm willing to miss that party. Like again, I I'm in LA. I miss so many like family events back in Ireland, and that I was willing to do to achieve this goal.